Hello, I'm Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Sunday. It's time for the next Loki video, and this is going to be about what I have learned from him so far. My attitude about Loki has undergone a significant change in the past few weeks. At the beginning of September, I had never really investigated his mythology, at least not in a serious way, and I had next to no awareness of what was going on with present-day Loki veneration amongst some people. When I began to feel his tug, before I even realized it was him, I started asking myself questions, just out of the blue. And I've come across a brief description of something that was in the lore, on one of those blurbs on Pinterest or whatever. And I just had an instinct that there was missing context. And, not just because it was brief, but just there was more to the story than what initially met the eye. So, as I opened my mind, and when I finally admitted that it was Loki who was calling to me, this just sparked a whirlwind, and it's still going on, and I'm still in the center of it, and it is real. So, the first task he gave me had to do with trust, but the second was for me to acknowledge that my emotions and my instincts were not given equal footing to my mind. Now, as important as the mind is, and the capacity for logic and reason, it still isn't enough in and of itself. That has been very difficult for me. Not so much as an idea, but as putting that idea into practice. Like most everyone else, there were occasions in my past in which my heart led me astray, or when my instincts were wrong. Yeah, all those people who say, always trust your gut, it's never wrong. Yeah, not necessarily. You can misinterpret what your instincts are telling you, or you might fail to appreciate that what your instincts are telling you about what's going on with someone mentally and emotionally and what that person is actually going to do are not necessarily the same things. It happens. So, a significant portion of the meditations that I do with Loki are centered on this issue and attempting to make room for the impulses of the heart and the nudges of intuition. Now, the fear that I've experienced in this process is firmly rooted in my discomfort and feeling vulnerable, and in working towards quite a significant shift in my mindset, my worldview, my general mode of being. Just think about the mental rewiring that is going on through this process. It's not a small thing, and anyone who's experienced something similar can probably also attest to the fact that this isn't a small thing, and it is scary. That's no reason not to embrace the challenge. If we never leave our comfort zone, we will never grow. Stagnation sets in, the soul decays, sometimes the body follows suit. Have you ever seen someone who's just kind of stuck in the same place and then you see them having health problem after health problem after health problem? It's because they're trying to not grow. They're trying to stay in their comfort zone, and that isn't life. And after a while, it isn't even existence. We're all better off when we face our demons and let them know who's actually in charge around here. That would be us. Now, the second thing, I suppose really the third thing that Loki's been working on me, it has to do with mourning what has been lost, but then lifting up your head to look at new possibilities and move forward. Now, it's no secret that I'm deeply distressed by the current state of the world. I grew up in a very collectivistic, very authoritarian religion, and this has made me the implacable foe of all forms of authoritarianism and all forms of collectivism. Don't bother me with bullshit excuses. I lived it, and everyone who lives through any form of that knows exactly what it is. I am frustrated by people who refuse to acknowledge the danger of these ideologies, or who can't be bothered to do anything to oppose it, or think, well, they'll still be all right because they'll conform, they'll comply, and nothing bad will happen to them. Oh, oh. No one can afford that kind of naivete. Because we are living in a time in which the conditions exist that make the collapse of the civilization I grew up in possible, even likely. There's a reason why you hear people discussing more and more the prospect of civil war or secession or decentralization or something. Is because people know that it's a powder keg, and sooner or later something's going to happen to set it all off. And I see the founding principles of my country misrepresented, perverted, and treated as worthless by opportunistic criminals and politicians. But I repeat myself. Yeah, I'm sad, I'm depressed, and I'm angry about it, but mostly I'm angry. Whenever I'm grieving, I tend to go straight into anger because, to be perfectly frank, I find it easier to deal with anger than I do with sadness. But still, the sadness has to be faced, and Loki has helped me with that. And he's helped me see that I have hid behind anger as a shield my entire life. Because with anger, maybe the other person who's involved in the situation might think twice about messing with you further. Maybe behind the anger, it's like a cat that's hissing and they have all their claws and their teeth out. It's about saying, you don't want to deal with this. But it can't act as a shield forever. And if society does go up in flames, we'll need to be level-headed as possible in order to deal with whatever fallout that takes place. That means I can't personally afford to just go straight into seeing red and just being angry. I'm going to need to be able to think as well as to have my feeling and my instincts in balance. All of us will. I'm frequently reminded that as one thing ends, another thing has the potential to come into being. Not all the possibilities of the future are dire. Some could even be a vast improvement. I mean, yes, I do think that the tower is going to fall in one form or another, but then there's what happens after that. And there are people out there who are also seeing the things that I'm seeing, but they're taking practical actions and they are doing their best to create a world that's going to be livable for people who value freedom. Now, people who don't value freedom, you know what? The rest of us can't really help you until you re-examine that particular philosophical premise. All of the rest of us are wanting is simply to be left alone so we can live as we see fit. It's amazing how a simple idea of freedom and liberty and individualism has been turned into this almost like swear words in our society. It bothers me. But I'm still not alone. I'm not the only person who is saying, we need to start thinking about alternative arrangements for society. And there are still people who say, you know what, maybe we can't save everything and everyone, but maybe we are able to save ourselves. Maybe we will be able to gather with people who say, you know what, I just want to be left alone and live my life. Loki is helping me see that, and he's also showing me some possibilities of things I can do to support that, in my day-to-day life, and to also think about future plans, just in case. Now, the last lesson I'm going to talk about in this video that Loki's been working with me is about not being afraid to rock the boat when the occasion calls for it. I realize that on this channel I might appear to be someone who never has any qualms about that whatsoever, but I do try to, I've always tried to rock the boat when I felt it was an opportune moment or when I felt it was absolutely necessary to do so. But it's still coming up more and more because we're in an environment in which the worst thing we could possibly do is to state the obvious. People don't care about what's true or what's false. They care about whether or not it hurts people's feelings. Sometimes I feel like we're living in the novel Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which if you haven't read, you really should. There was a passage in the book, and where she wrote that people's greatest fears wasn't that someone would reveal their darkest secrets, but that someone would state what everyone knew but was afraid to say. And that's where we're at. That you wonder why everything is so dysfunctional. There you go. That's a root cause right there. And look how vengeful people get when someone says, or is reported to have said, something offensive that hurt feelings. And watch how quickly that's equated to physical violence. And everyone is supposed to be intimidated by this, to be fearful of their opinions because of the willingness of a minority to slander and misrepresent anyone who doesn't share their opinions in detail. You don't have to do something that is actually wrong in order to incur their wrath. People with that mindset are not kind-hearted. They don't have anyone's best interest at heart, not even their own, and they make terrible architects of society. It prevents communication. It prevents the exploration of ideas, big or small. It prevents honesty. So you can see why Loki and I have been having an ongoing discourse about this. People who have this mindset, they're going to find an excuse to dislike someone and attempt to banish them from society. And for anyone like that, there's literally no reason to placate them, no reason to bend the knee, No reason to avoid rocking their boat. In fact, it is imperative that free thinkers oppose such tyranny and go out of their way to speak frankly. If someone is determined to dislike you, there's no way to suck up to them enough. You have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose, but we all have everything to gain by refusing to put up with the ideological bullying that's running rampant in society, whether we're talking about our next door neighbors or the people who happen to be in the White House for reasons that escape my understanding. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how powerful or weak they might be. If someone is trying to be this kind of crusading, ideological bully, we do not have to put up with their shit. I'm not saying there won't be consequences. I'm not saying they're not going to try to make life difficult. I am saying if we're going to have life at all, it has to be done. These 3 lessons that I've mentioned very briefly have only scratched the surface, and they only represent the beginning. Loki isn't done with me, and there's a long road ahead, and there's no telling what twists and turns it will take. But I feel grateful that Loki is taking the time and the trouble to help me deal with things that I've struggled with for a long time. He didn't have to. And that's something to keep in mind with our relationships with the gods. They don't have to do these things for us. If they are showing up and they are helpful and they are providing us with guidance and direction, it is a gift. And Loki, despite all the people who would say all the things they like to say about him, when you are working with him and when you are cooperating and trying to see the point of it all and trying to put things into practice and trying to connect the dots, he is very empathetic. He is patient. He knows when to push and he knows when to let up. He's not going to, thrust someone completely beyond their boundaries, if they are making an honest attempt. He doesn't expect you to just, get it in a flash, get it in a day, but he does expect you to make progress and to actively work towards that progress. And when I think about it, and the things that are coming up and other things he's been hinting at, I think I've been needing his influence in my life for quite a while. So I have a lot to be thankful for. So if you also work with Loki and you enjoyed this video, I would welcome a visit from you on the Discord server, Blackbird's Brew. There will be a link to join in the description box below. And also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment. That's it for now. So, bye-bye.